Dear Jane, I'm pleased to hear your correspondence, and I'm surprised you responded with so many questions, and I am inclined to answer them. To your question, why the initial hesitancy to believe in God in the first place, I would attribute that to something I heard as a kid that never struck me as sensical, which is the phrase, God is good. It's not that God isn't good, but more so that people say this, and when I inquire what they mean, they could never properly explain it. It's like that question, do you believe in God? It's not a simple yes or no, and it's a dumber question than people might think. But when people say God is good, they would be biting off more than they could chew in terms of being able to explain it. Just as when I say, do you believe in God, you can't just say yes or no, because I could mean Islam, I could mean Judaism, or I could mean Christianity. And so, when people couldn't adequately explain the phrase God is good, I assumed they were stupid, and that what they believed was inherently nonsensical. Therefore, I couldn't believe in God based on these observations, and I was only 30% right in that observation, and you may have found yourself unwittingly on that side of my mental critiques on more occasions than you realize. However, this didn't stop me from wanting depth and richness in life. Therefore, what would come to be upon our parting was an exploration of proof that there was a spiritual world, through the New Age and the occult. However, in the words of Bishop Robert Barron, often we spend so long running away from God, we inadvertently run headfirst into the outstretched arms of Jesus. I digress. In my New Age and occultic era, it became undeniable that there was a spiritual world, and the question became, is what I am exploring objectively good or bad? My initial hesitation was based on the need for proof that there was more to us than our bodies and minds, which begs another question which you bring up in a way. How did you come to discover that Jesus is who he says he is? Well, I want to rephrase this question in a way that's even more difficult to answer. How did I conclude, after having undeniable proof that there is a spiritual world, that Christianity is the fullness of truth, goodness, and beauty? Well, this would begin by understanding that all spiritualities are true, in that they are real. Good in that some bring more good into the world than others, and beautiful in that they all have elements of profundity to them. However, not all Christianity is the same. Protestantism, Catholicism, and Eastern Orthodoxy differ on many things. However, upon honest studying, it is clear that the Catholic Church is the church Jesus started. But that's for another letter. For now, though, I want to call back to the story in Exodus when God says to Moses, I am that I am. God is, so to speak, the entity of existence itself. As such, when studying different religions, I found that no religion made quite the exclusive claim as clean and precise as what Jesus says in the Gospel of John. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Equating himself to truth. Equating himself to God, the great I am. And so it's a tricky phrase to work through. And nonetheless, with New Ageism and occultism, which puts you at the center of the universe, you become your own way. Hinduism and others like it have gods that are subservient to equal or higher entities. Even Krishna in Hinduism, according to a Hindu friend of mine, merges with the great ocean of consciousness that is God. And Islam is interesting to say the least. But to my point, the Bible is the only book that metaphysically gives an accurate depiction of what God is. God doesn't merge in the Bible. And he also isn't equal with you or I. He is the great I am, which is the opposite of what the New Age and the occult posit. And in Islam, God seems to be an impersonal being. But in the Bible, God simultaneously exists as the great I am, yet also a personal being. God comes in the flesh and says, I am truth itself. and there really isn't any middle ground there. Jesus is either lying or he is telling the truth. Christianity also offers an explanation for our state as people and the perfect solution to our broken nature. And this realization and understanding set the stage for how and why I understand Christianity and why it can't be merged into other spiritualities, because it is innately rooted in something outside of its own claims. It is a worldview, a religion, a spirituality, and a relationship that is based entirely on Jesus being the focal point of truth, goodness, and beauty. Christianity isn't right because Christianity says it's right. Christianity is true because either Jesus is lying or he is not. Now, when people say God is good, I see what they're saying. And knowing what I know now, I can see my former hesitancy. This was not an easy conclusion to reach, and it is disheartening to see a world that doesn't care for such a full understanding of the human condition and the universe. The reason I was hesitant to believe when you asked why I wouldn't believe was because neither of us could fully understand what I just said, and neither could the people whom I inquired about the phrase, God is good. And even now, I don't know what that means in many ways. Your friend Mark.